Alright, we're going to go back to last year real quick because we're just now getting to some potential Oscar movies. I know potential is a... from Manchester by the Sea's case. So we might as well just be calling it an Oscar movie.
It is an Oscar movie.
Hidden Figures can go either way. Monster Calls not so much. But let's just go right into this. Since this is our second video this weekend. We're going to start with Manchester by the Sea, obviously. One of our picture frontrunners. It's second or third, depending on who you ask.
It's got a great shot at winning the Globe tomorrow.
Original screenplay, most definitely. I know I might be speaking too soon, but whatever. Anyway, we've already done the Oscar videos. This is a fucking review.
Check those out.
Stick with it.
Too big.
So if you aren't aware, Manchester by the Sea is a story of grieving by Kenneth Lonergan, who did You Can Count on Me and Margaret. You Can Count on Me, which scored Laura Linney a nomination and was kind of the starting point for Ruffalo when people really started to take notice of him. He kind of became this kind of indie star for a while there before he got like really big in more ways than one. And Margaret, as I said before, is that three-hour Anna Paquin movie where I think it was Allison Janney got hit by a bus and died, and it was the repercussions of everybody in regards to that. Some people hate it, some people love it, depends on where you are. And yeah, this movie falls right in line with that. Like, these three could probably be their own trilogy. And it's one of those cases where if you've seen You Can Count on Me or Margaret, you know that Lonergan very much has this grasp on kind of realism and just portraying people in the most real way possible, and real life problems in the most realistic way possible. And in this particular case, we have Casey Affleck, whose brother Kyle Chandler had heart problems for a while there and has now died. And he had a son who was Lucas Hedges, and Casey Affleck has become the guardian of him through the will, which is the plot of the movie and what the plot of the movie is advertised to be, but it happens pretty late in the movie when we get to that point.
Yeah.
So, and yes, that's really the main kind of pushing point for this movie is just to show even more so that Lonergan has that way of portraying real people going through real things. While in this case, kind of being set in that Boston area. So the thing is that I noticed in the theater that a lot of the audience was older people.
Yeah, definitely.
And there are people that have maybe tolerances or not tolerances for certain things. It's worth noting, 9 times out of 10, if you're watching a movie that's set in that Boston area, foul language is kind of its own character.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Like, they create an art out of using the F word. Is what we see in movies like The Departed is the first one that comes to mind, or Nil by Mouth, or anything.
Pretty much.
And so, if you can get past that, I feel like some people may not be able to get past it, because for a movie like this, for a movie so kind of grounded and not over the top, and everything is kind of subtle and all that, the language is like non-stop. So clearly that's not a problem for me or a number of people. But just putting that out there, you have to be prepared for that to basically act as basically its own character. Now obviously one thing that's getting a lot of attention for this movie is this monumental sweep that Casey Affleck is doing of the Best Actor awards.
Right.
And yes, I can't. Like I was telling you, I don't think I did him any favors seeing Fences first, but
you did not.
But Casey Affleck is very good in this, as he often has been. Like for a while there, his big claim to fame, as far as Casey Affleck's a great actor, was like almost strictly The Assassination of Jesse James. But you can throw Gone Baby Gone in there as well, and there are cases Out of the Furnace. But this seems to be will be the new go-to of, either this movie itself is going to be the go-to to say Casey Affleck is a great actor, or a potential inevitable Oscar win is going to be your go-to. But regardless, this movie has probably changed Casey Affleck's career forever.
I'd say so.
And yes, there are a lot of cases where there's nothing too over the top. There's not a whole lot of big scenes. And what could arguably be one of his biggest scenes in the movie, is really just played off as a normal scene. It's all in the dialogue and how he says it and what the context of the scene is. I do feel like context of scenes is helping him a lot in regards to how his performance is regarded. Because the context of the scenes and the dialogue are, in some cases, just as important as how they're played. But then there is one particular case, like his inevitable Oscar clip, and the one scene that everybody's probably gonna kind of like be the first thing that's mentioned when you mention Casey Affleck's performance, and that is this police station scene you might have heard about if you haven't already seen the movie, where something has happened and he's basically being questioned about it. And it's this kind of long take where he's going through the whole motions of what happened, and the camera's just kind of slowly kind of coming in on him. And this is one of those cases I was reminded, because this doesn't happen all that often. You know when people talk about when they get immersed into a movie, and a lot of the times I don't much as I love movies, I guess it's just because I see so many in such a small span of time usually through these weekends, and I'm so just going from one to the other, that this immersion thing is something that's often lost on me. Like when people say like just one line or like one thing that happens takes them out of a movie or something, I just like, I don't get it. I don't know how you somehow forgot you were watching a movie or something, or however that's supposed to go. But every now and then there will be scenes. The acting scene in Mulholland Drive is another case where this has happened. And it happens again with Casey Affleck in this police station scene, and that is, we're just watching this one person in an unbroken take just do dialogue and kind of play the scene out. And it actually is, like, the longer and longer the scene goes, and the longer they're just talking and they're just doing their thing and acting the scene, it is kind of like everything around the screen disappears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you feel that watching that, or?
Because
it's yeah, that doesn't it takes a really, really big scene to be able to pull something like that off. But I will say, I don't mean to take. It sounds like I'm kind of trying to take away from everything he put into this. I'm not trying to take away anything with how good Casey Affleck is in this, but it's just one of those cases where his really good scenes, I feel, can also just as equally be attributed to the writing and direction. Once again, that's not a bad thing, because everything has to piece together for this to come out as good as it does. And so another thing you want to go into while talking about this movie, another thing on top of the language, another thing that people may not quite be expecting when they go in, and that's the fact that this is pretty much a comedy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I struggle to say, completely, or, it should be categorized as such. I wouldn't go that far necessarily, but, yes, there are a lot of very funny lines and moments and deliveries in this movie. Especially given the plot. That may completely catch people by surprise. And it's all kind of just sometimes it's in a sense of like Little Miss Sunshine, for instance. The scene after Alan Arkin is dead and they're trying to deal with the hospital people and how that plays out. Where it's this kind of relatable thing, but they play it up, as if it were in a comedy, regardless of how real it also feels. And they're kind of combining the realism with this absurdity, and it makes the scene comedic. As sad as it is in setup. There are scenes like that in this movie a lot. One very similar one. And And there's one particular case that stands out where they're trying to take Casey Affleck through everything he's going to have to go through now that to prepare, Kyle Chandler's funeral and the body and all that other stuff. And then just in frustration, he screams, "Fuck this!" And then just immediately goes into, "Sorry." So stuff like that is sprinkled throughout it. And the other great thing, one thing I forgot to mention about Affleck's performance before I go into this comedy thing is there's something I kind of noticed throughout the movie as it went on, and that's the fact that I noticed it really late in the movie too, which I think says something about this whole factor. And that's because of the situation, but not just the situation, but everything that happened prior that we learn throughout the movie has happened in his life. This character, Lee Chandler, is miserable. He's just a miserable fucking human being. So you can bet that through most of the movie, he's not going to be smiling. He's going to just kind of have this very kind of downtrodden look about him, to where you can just kind of see what has happened in his life just by looking at him. And just how fucking tired he looks of life in general. And how he just really could not care for anybody else's bullshit by this point. Especially the people he works for. You're standing in the doorway. But the thing is that every now and then, there'll be a scene that pops up when he does smile. And the thing is you never really notice how much he hasn't been smiling in the movie until he does. Like, it just kind of seems like it's one of those things where people just smile, just in general. That's just what people look like. Sometimes they're smiling, sometimes they're not. But we get to know this character in such a way that those times when he smiles in the movie, it actually dawns on you to think to yourself, he's smiling right now. And I think that really says something about how the character's portrayed, that just something as simple and normal as that is something you take notice of. Once again, there could also be direction as well. But regardless, I really like that little detail. But yes, going back to this, it's just so weird that this movie is consistently funny. Like, there's no particular moment where the movie's sad, then it's funny, then it just gets straight up sad again. Through the whole movie, it's a mixture of both. And we're kind of going from one or the other. Like, if they feel like we're getting too much of one, they'll give us the other in, like, a big way. And sometimes even there's scenes where you don't know which reaction to have. Which is a good... And like, that sounds like it could just be a confused movie in tone, but in this particular case, it's handled to the point that it's a good thing when a scene happens or a line is said and you're not sure what reaction you're supposed to have. Something that probably happens quite a bit in real life. There was one scene, Michelle Williams' big scene. I was talking about this when we were talking to Ashley the other day. Michelle Williams' big scene. She says one line. In the theater, there's someone over here crying and there's someone over here laughing.
Yeah.
And that just sums it up completely.
You take it different ways.
And that person laughed loud. And there are scenes like that all through this movie, and that's what makes the scene so rich too, is that you can do both. The frozen chicken scene, where it's like there's kind of there's a scene where it could either be played up as a slapstick moment or an oh god, you feel bad for him moment when he hits his head off the freezer. And then we realize he's having a reaction to the frozen chicken. And like I said, there is a funny aspect to that seeing frozen chicken makes him act this way. And Casey Affleck's reaction to this makes it funny as well. But at the same time, Lucas Hedges almost made me shed a tear in that scene. It just snuck up on me.
Yeah.
Because it's like they were playing it up like kind of a comedic, absurd thing. And then he just kind of says one line and we see where he is and we're like, oh shit, this is bad.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh man, oh shit, that hurts. Oh god. And that was the scene, once again, I was saying on the video, that's the scene they're going to play the shit out of, should he be he's already nominated at SAG, but should he go anywhere else, that's going to be the moment they use. They could just go for a random dialogue scene, but it's going to have to be really heavily edited because of the language.
Oh, yeah, no lie.
But I would say that would be his go-to scene. But really, though, I wouldn't object to that because that's the scene where I said, should he be nominated, I won't mind.
No, I
like
won't
I'd be glad. Like there's people I'd put in ahead of him personally.
Same.
But if he were to be in there, I would have no problem. So
he deserved it.
Yeah, so that's a win-win situation on nominations day. So
the compatibility he has with Casey Affleck is just unbelievable.
Mm.
I've said this before. I think I said this in a video. I told you when we got out of the theater that it kind of reminds me of how Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were.
Mm.
That same rapport between the two.
Like Will
of them.
and Chucky.
Yeah, exactly, and it works.
Just
perfectly.
one significantly older than the other. And the thing, that's what I was saying though, is as far as this balance goes, is that it's able to do it, but not just necessarily evenly. Like there could be, you know, funny stuff, and then something dramatic will happen. But when the drama comes, it's really fucking heavy.
Oh yeah.
Like there's not like funny, and then a somewhat dramatic moment. When the drama hits, it's always something really, really, really heavy. Yet it never loses that balance. It's always able to bounce back with something funny. Like I said, the scene where Lucas Hedges almost made me shed a tear. In the very same scene, in rebuttal to him, what Casey Affleck's doing is funny. His reaction to it is funny, while what Lucas Hedges is doing is really fucking sad. And they somehow both work in the same scene. It's really quite interesting. And it was also worth seeing, as far as in praise of the writing, I feel like this is another reason why I feel like it's such a shoo-in for the win, is there are these little things that feel like they'd feel like improvisation, or there are scenes where everybody's talking over the other,
right?
Or like somebody will start talking and they'll start talking and an argument goes on where they're both just talking at the same time. I was able to hear about what the script looked like. Everything in the movie, down to those details, is completely scripted. Like when they're talking over each other, the dialogue is like runs parallel down the page. Like it doesn't say Lee says this and then Patrick says this. It's Lee over here and Patrick over here, and it just has their dialogue lined up at the same time to show that when they actually did the dialogue, it's just supposed to overlap as they argue. And those arguments that, like I said, sound so improvised are scripted down to like every word. And that's praise. We'll do the reverse now. Not only is that praise to the writing and direction, but for them to be able to pull the dialogue off to where it sounds so improvised and natural, yet every single word is scripted. That takes a lot of talent to make that sound natural. When you know every word is written, it's all very, very well done. If I do have one problem with the movie, it's there was concern about its length. 2 hours and like 18 minutes, I believe. That's long for this movie. That is pretty long. There are scenes where, like I was talking about with Fences, like when it kind of seemed like when Denzel would let scenes breathe before he'd go into another one because he didn't want to maybe get into a hurry to get to a payoff or whatever. Here I feel like that's done maybe a little too much. Like maybe it's just a tiny too meandering, just a little bit, to where when we eventually get to a point, it does kind of start to feel its length. But other than that, it is really well done. It's right in line with Honor Against Filmography. I'm not sure if I prefer it to You Can Count on Me or not. I also like Margaret pretty well. You Can Count on Me is really, really good stuff, though. But yeah, I don't know that it's strong enough that I'm totally and completely pleased that it's a top 3 picture contender, but there's nothing. There are much worse movies that have been in the top 3. This is still very good. And like I said, that the whole combination of the acting, direction, and writing is just yes. Lonergan dragged out his cameo a little too long too. Like, I don't think we needed that full separate shot of him walking away. But you do what you want. It's your movie, dude.
Exactly.
Oh, and in true Lonergan fashion, Matthew Broderick appearance. So we got that to look forward to as well. I'm pretty sure that because he was in the opening credits, I feel like the people in the theater were looking for him the whole time because he got a big reaction when he showed up. It's like, Matthew Broderick doesn't get reactions like this anymore. Okay, so, yes, very good. I'm fine with it. Our second movie is going to be Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures is that one of those stories you could line up with, say, Hacksaw Ridge, where it's one of those cases where it's a movie you're kind of surprised hadn't seen the light of day yet, and tells a story that was surprisingly kind of under the radar, about these 3 women who worked at NASA, who were black in the 60s, so it was a really, really big deal, and just in that whole race for space time. And getting John Glenn up there without dying. Not even trying to do the get to the moon thing yet. We're just trying to make sure we can get him out there and bring him back. And that's what this movie is. We have Taraji P. Henson, Octavia Spencer, and Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe reuniting already with her Moonlight co-star. Possible future Oscar winner Mahershala Ali is in this as well, but we'll get to that. I was a little put off by a few things. For starters, everybody was saying this movie looked like The Help. And I hate The Help. I hate The Help a lot. I just don't hardly like anything about that movie except for a couple of performances. So that was a little disheartening. And then so I was like, well, we'll just see what happens. It's a different story. It's different characters. Right. Mostly different actors. Octavia Spencer's the only repeat here, isn't she? So, yeah. So it can't be... I'm sure it's different than The Help. So it starts... And it's fine. And then we immediately get her background in West Virginia and stuff like that. And then we get this car scene when they're like broken down on the side of the road. And they need to get to work. They're already in NASA. We see that she's, above everybody in her classes as a kid, and she's jumping through grades like nothing. She graduated college by 18 or something. I read the facts and then I forgot them, but it's something along the lines of that. She just went right through school. They skipped right over her getting a job at NASA along with the other girls. It's just 1 minute she's a little girl, the next minute they're on their way to work at NASA and their car breaks down. But, the movie's already 2 hours and 8 minutes. It's probably good they kind of cut to the chase. And so we get to this scene, and there's a whole lot of overacting going on already. Because it's like, this is one of those performances where it's like, they're going to be big personalities. The question is how long are these big personalities going to be big before they're tiresome? And so everything in this scene is overplayed. Octavia Spencer is under the car working on it. But how are we going to know Octavia Spencer is working on this car if all we see is her legs coming out from under it? She's going to jiggle them like she's being electrocuted while she's to show I'm fixing the car. So there's that, and then I was like, oh, okay, that was a little over. It's a little tiny thing, but it was a little overdone to the point that I noticed. That's bad. So I was like, okay, we'll just ignore that. But then she's like, okay, Taraji, get in the car, see if it starts. She's like, okay. So I was like, surely Taraji's not going to overact this tiny little moment. So she starts the ignition by turning the key and bouncing in the car to really show you how much she's turning that key. This probably seems nitpicky, but I mean, to start your acting off that way, I'm pretty sure any actor will tell you that's not very good. I love hearing actors analyze how much they hate having to do this when they drive, because that's how they're being directed. because it's like, that's really overcompensating. That's what was going on in this scene. It was like, okay, I get the whole big personalities thing, but good Christ, you can tone it down already. I have seen you for 10 seconds and I need you to tone down what you're doing. Janelle Monáe, God bless her, is like the only one that's kind of where she's a big personality without trying to be one, where she's not really trying to play up anything. She's the one where she has this constant look on her face like she's tired of everybody's bullshit. And it's
But she's too polite to say anything about it.
depends on who she's talking to.
Exactly.
But anyway, they get to NASA, and then the movie begins, and we meet their boss, Kevin Costner, who's the guy basically... We're in that race for space phase, so it's all about beating the Russians to get into space. And Costner's very, very determined, while also not necessarily... It's kind of like Costner's character is colorblind to a fault. Because while it's good that he's like, you know, I don't care what you are, you work here, I just need you to do this stuff, and we'll be fine. But the problem is that he's so colorblind that it never occurs to him what's happening to her in her workplace while he's up in his isolated office. It never occurs to him that she needs to use a bathroom that's half a mile down the road. It never occurs to him that they have to give her a separate coffee pot that they don't even bother to fill. And that she's just basically looked down on by everybody. Most notably Jim Parsons and Kirsten Dunst. Who are... Well, the thing I do like that this movie does is that the racist characters in it, there's not a whole... I mean, it's certainly there. There are black women in the 60s. You're going to have that in there. But for the most part, as far as the NASA atmosphere, none of the characters are really portrayed as hateful so much as products of their environment.
Yep.
Like, they even... I was thinking that, and then they actually kind of go into this with Kirsten Dunst's character when she's talking to Octavia Spencer in the bathroom, where it's like, these are people that definitely have it out for her because of who she is and what she is. But they just kind of... It's just because it's that time period. These aren't people just portrayed as like antagonistic caricatures of the general white racist, particularly in the 60s. It's just... Yeah, so I really like that they weren't played up like that. So it's just more of... Yeah, but obviously still, it shows the huge conflict of the barriers she had to break through in order to do her job. While also being seen as an equal in this workplace. And the extraordinary ways that she went about showing that she was maybe not just one of them, but kind of above them in regards to the work she can put out. And the way she can do... Which she can figure numbers and all that stuff, more so than the characters who already worked here before her. So there's that, and there's Octavia Spencer's whole thing with the computers, and Janelle Monáe's whole thing with those scenes with Oleg Rupa. Yeah, the Russian guy who you might recognize as he was the Russian they took the disc to in Burn After Reading, and he was the villain in Home Alone 3. You definitely know that guy. So yes, and obviously it's played up very, very lighthearted. This movie's very, very bouncy and upbeat, despite some of the issues that it tackles. And yeah, it's... I don't know. It's... There are people that are gonna love this movie. To be totally honest with you, I would not be surprised whatsoever if the Academy was part of that. This is definitely a crowd-pleasing movie. I don't know, to the point to where I kind of feel like it was... I don't know. I guess I just didn't have the investment in order to be as into it as, say, a typical audience would be. This is one of those movies where when the movie ended, everybody applauded. It was one of those movies.
Yeah, I kind of rolled my eyes at that, to be honest.
Let them do their thing, man.
I understand, but still.
And there are some funny moments, and there are funny lines here. When they realize that they can't get the computers through the doorway is a funny little moment. But then there are these big triumphant moments. What an interesting group of people to see credited together. Was it Zimmer and Pharrell?
Yep.
Who did the score, the Golden Globe nominated score. The very overbearing, this is emotional, this is triumphant score. It's one of those, unfortunately. Kind of like the scene where, like I said, it's a very triumphant scene, and it's a moving scene. When Taraji gets her big, hopeful Oscar clip, is what she wanted. She was going for. When she finally has to open Costner's eyes to what it's like to work here for her. After she's had to take another run to the bathroom, and he's pissed off that she's been gone for so long, and she finally just comes out. She's been meek for most of the movie, despite having that kind of strong personality. But there's that scene where she just gets to unload on Costner and say, do you realize what it's like for me to work here, and what I have to do, and what I have to put up with? And Costner responds to that by literally just personally tearing down the colors only sign at the top of the bathroom that's way far down. So scenes like that can be very moving, even if the score kind of makes them a little overbearing. But it's still fine. It is worth... I think I know where some of my lacking investment came from. And that's the whole... And this isn't even necessarily... I don't know, it's hard to say if this... I wouldn't jump to say this is the movie's fault. But the whole setup for the Race for Space thing. Where it's like, who's going to get there first? Us or the Russians? And the thing about it, from a personal perspective... Sorry, I'm going to bring personal stuff into this for a second, but... space exploration from anybody is good news. We want to work together as like a world and get done as much as we can and find out as much as we can. And that's great. So anytime like another country is able to find something or accomplish something, that's great because it's an accomplishment for the world. So, especially in something like the whole space thing. So a lot of this movie hinges on us rooting for them to beat the Russians to get a dude in space. To the point that we have to be like legitimately upset when the Russians get there first. And it's like, this is a joyous moment. This was a joyous moment in history. A dude was in space. But because we're following these characters in the movie, this is a somber part of the movie. And it's like, this is hard to feel. It's really hard. It's like, yay, space exploration. All these people didn't do it first. It's like, is that what we're supposed to be doing here? Because it's like, yeah, that's kind of a bummer for them, I guess, a little bit. But I mean, space exploration is space exploration. So I guess that's kind of a lot of where my investment wasn't quite there. Because it was like, I don't really feel the need to be sad if our heroes just didn't do something first. You know what I mean? So, whatever. I guess that was my problem. I'm not totally sure. But another problem I can say that I had was that it's very... despite I was somehow upbeat and happy that most of the movie is. And the thing is that even though the movie's like, you know, the score and it's trying to be, you know, humorously active and everything is, you know, hustle and bustle, but in kind of a funny way or whatever, or a happy way. Regardless of how much they're trying to liven it up with all that stuff, there's still a lot of dull spots. Like the fact that this movie, once again, does not need to be as long as it is. It really doesn't. This movie does not need to be only 10 minutes shorter than Manchester by the Sea. Really unnecessary. And And it's kind of, for a while there, it's another case of, you actually start to wonder exactly what our closing point is going to be. Because it's like, well, I guess that could be a point of closure. It was like, oh, we're going to go ahead and show this stuff. And then it's like, well, okay, what exactly is going to be our stopping point? And it found a decent one. It could have gotten there a little faster, probably, and maybe trimmed some fat, but it got there well enough. That little love story with Marshall Ali is nice, if underdeveloped. I mean, I think its main purpose here is to for it to be a really nice moment in the text at the end when it tells us how long they stayed married. So it gives that context, I guess, and it kind of gives her the whole. There's the family life angle, but that's kind of only so important that we really need to give it any focus when we got all this stuff going on. So yeah, it's fine. It's interesting to me that Octavia Spencer's the one that's getting Globe and SAG nominations.
Yeah,
maybe more in the future. She's really not in it that much, and when she's here, she's just she made no impact on me in The Help. That's an Oscar win that's still baffling to me.
No lie.
So I guess I'm just I don't know. Well, no, there's some comedic roles she's had that I like, but I mean. Here, I feel like it's Denouement that really should be the standout here, which I believe seems to be a bit of a consensus. But, no. She can't catch a break.
If she got in, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
For this and Moonlight, it's like she's not getting... Why is nobody giving her the attention she deserves? It's a bummer. Because I liked her in both of these quite a bit. And yeah, well, I feel like Taraji does kind of sometimes have a tendency to overact. She plays she's a good fit for the strong character that needed to be portrayed here. And her big scene is pretty good. I mean, I know it's standard Oscar clip scenes, but that scene where she unloads on Costner is really... It's also the fact that we've been able to build to it so much, and that she's been so kind of meek around her superiors up to that point, and the people kind of oppressing her. It's a big moment when she finally goes off on... She's going off on Costner, but it ends up going off on the whole room. And that kind of thing where she's very, 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 very slowly earning the respect of Jim Parsons. Whether he's earned, hers or not, I guess isn't an issue, but that kind of back and forth they have throughout the movie. It's interesting to see him in a part like that.
Yeah. He needs more stuff like this, honestly.
Yeah, because he was really good in The Normal Heart as well. So, but The Big Bang Theory is really just, people only see him in like one way. And that's the thing is, you think of Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory, and you hear that he's going to be playing somebody that works for NASA in this. People go in probably thinking it's going to be the same character, but it's like anything but. So yeah, I like the way he's kind of expanding what he's doing and kind of trying to... I don't think that Sheldon thing is going to leave him, but it's cool to see that he's trying to kind of do different things with his career, so... did I miss anything, or... Yeah, it's so...
Great soundtrack, but I'm not surprised, given the facts.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where I don't mind saying that it's got a decent soundtrack, because it didn't seem like it was trying too hard to just pack a bunch of shit in. It kind of set the period, too. So, that was nice. It's okay. It's just a little too dull in places, a little too long, and... Yeah, sometimes it's maybe overdoing it just a tiny, tiny bit. I hate that opening scene with the car, I really do.
It was in the trailer, and it set basically the tone for the way the movie was going to go.
Okay, let's end this.
Sounds good.
Our last movie is going to be A Monster Calls. There were a number of things I thought this movie could be. I really wasn't quite sure.
Right.
I just knew that Liam Neeson was a tree that spoke. And the director was the guy that did The Impossible, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really trying to figure out what exactly this was going to be, and maybe kind of be in the vein of those kind of fantasy movies like the one I brought up to you on the way down was Loch Ness, which is really funny because the last name of the writer of this movie is Ness, which I didn't know going in. I was also expecting something along the lines of the BFG. One thing that kept coming back to me every time I heard about it was No Such Thing, the Hal Hartley movie with Sarah Polley. None of these movies I'm mentioning are that great, by the way. Just, I think you should know this. But then while watching it, yeah, it's kind of its own thing, but it definitely has hints of these other movies. A hint I was definitely... They don't have a lot in common, but just watching it, a vibe I kept getting was Where the Wild Things Are. Mm-hmm. And then once he first appeared, he doesn't get a name, he's just the monster. I wish he had a name, it'd make this much easier. I was starting to wonder if he was going to be the Babadook. And what I mean by that, of course, is when you watch the Babadook, it's very clear that it's very blatant symbolism for, oh, the Babadook's not, an actual supernatural entity. It's the personification of her mental health, or whatever that movie was. I know it has its fans. I don't care for it. But, and it was going to be like, I turned to you and I actually said, is the monster Felicity Jones's cancer? Not quite. Honestly, actually, I think the monster's supposed to be, like, a number of things. He could be a number of things. It's hard to specify exactly what he, symbolizes.
I'm reading the synopsis and it sounds very on point.
And the thing is that, well, for starters, one thing that really brings an emotional depth to this movie already is, if you heard the history of the child actor in the lead part, who apparently actually had his mom die, a few months before filming or something. It was a very short time between that happening and when he shot this movie. So there was that personal connection through the whole thing. So when you see him act in the movie, there is a whole new depth of sadness and tragedy that's kind of added to it when you know that going in. And before we go into the big effects and all that stuff, it is worth noting that kind of a big problem this movie has is when it's not doing all the creative stuff, and it's not kind of doing things in a different way. It's a pretty by-the-book kind of coming-of-age / dying parent movie. It's very, very much going through the motions all the way through. I prepared myself for the long haul. I was not happy whatsoever when I saw we'd be dealing with a bully character, and it's like, there's no kind of twist on it or anything. There's nothing new brought to it. This is just a straight up, normal, average, everyday bully character. Because those scenes aren't played out at all. Let's watch our hero get the shit beat out of him again and again until one day he snaps and Scut Farkas gets the shit beat out of him. Yes, our lead character, Connor, I think, gets his own Scut Farkas affair. So there's that, I suppose. I was really hoping, given the plot of the movie, that it was going to be like obviously he befriends a monster by name, and he has a bully, a particularly bad bully that really fucks him up. He's like, hope your mom gets better. It's like, wow, I'm kind of hoping for a let the right one in ending, aren't you?
Yes.
Or if not that, or what? Remember the Are You Afraid of the Dark episode when the kid had the thing in his basement? It was like I think it was music or something. It had the red eyes, and he the movie the episode ended with him feeding the thing his bully. It was like, is it gonna be that?
That would have been great.
No, it's not that kind of. It's basically it's not even particularly shy about its metaphorical thing. It's it's pretty clear throughout the movie that him being visited by this monster is like a a fantasy type thing. Well, I mean, the final moments leave it up for grabs, of course, because of course it does. But but I mean, throughout the movie, it's never kind of this ambiguous thing of is it real or is it not. It's pretty clear from the get go that this is a clear metaphor thing. That's kind of not necessarily real. It's like Pete's Dragon, really, I guess. Except for the fact that Pete's not much of a... Elliot is not much of a metaphor for things. Okay, going on now as far as what the monster does and his purpose. He shows up. I do like that they took a bit... You could tell in the delivery it was supposed to be funny. And that was, we meet the monster. He's this big, threatening thing. There's a scene earlier in the movie when he's watching the original King Kong. And he's like, his actual line is, those people are assholes. They're shooting at King Kong. So we know from the get-go that he's going to have compassion for monsters because of how he watched Kong. So this monster comes in, and he does the whole thing. He tears it up. He's big, and he's scary, and he's destructive. He's made of a tree and fire. He's got like a lava inside him or something. And he says, what's going to happen is every night I'm going to do this shit. I'm going to just fuck all this shit up. I'm going to shake your house. I'm going to wake you up. I'm going to scare the holy shit out of you. And then I'm going to tell you 3 stories.
Immediately they got me to laugh.
And that's what he does. And eventually we're going to come full circle. He's like, I'm going to tell you 3 stories, and then you're going to tell me a story. It's like, I was telling you, and he said, when you tell me a story, it's going to be the truth. I was telling you, it would have made me laugh. It was like, and then you're going to tell me a story, and it better be real fucking good, because I'm giving you 3. But
I'm going to eat you.
And then, of course, when the monster tells these stories, we get these big, long, animated sequences. Because everybody loves animated sequences. It's like what we saw in Deathly Hallows 1, Krampus.
Yeah.
When these stories are told with this animation of sorts to kind of liven up the story or whatever. And there's like, they're told in like constant transition, and they're really, really impressive. And they're really, really, you know, glorious to look at. Even if the stories are just really, really simple.
Right.
It's like you're really kind of dressing up what's actually quite simple. But I understand it's not necessarily the simplicity of the story, it's how it's told. And yes, these stories are told spectacularly. There's just one problem, is on top of the monster and all the stuff he can do, and that, you know, recurring dream he has about the church falling and the cemetery coming up and all that, and the animation in these stories being right up in your damn face. While this is all really good to look at and really impressive and really well done, this movie is kind of a visual overkill.
Yeah.
Like, probably, yeah. Like, I get it, it's really impressive, and that's great.
Thank God this wasn't in 3D.
It's a bit much, all the visuals. And it really seems like I was saying, how the stories are quite simple, and it's really like they're trying to really play it up and go for execution is key. But it's a little, yeah, it's a lot. A little too much. And to the point where it starts to wonder, like, are they maybe overcompensating for a lack of story here? And, yeah, so, and the whole symbolism and metaphors thing can be quite on the nose to a bothersome degree. Even though we can get to some powerful stuff. The entire last third is some pretty powerful stuff. The only trouble is that this just overkill of everything else in the first 2/3 kind of dampened what I feel could have been a magnificent impact that this last third has. Where it's this was getting talked about a while back about how much of a tearjerker it is. And while I wasn't feeling it myself, I can certainly get that. I just think I was a bit put off by the entire first 2/3 that. It kind of weakened the last third when we got there, because that me being invested in them wasn't completely and totally there. Even though Felicity Jones is very lovely in this, is that very, like, you hear the part and you think she's kind of young for that. Even though we just saw her have like a full life in The Theory of Everything, still Felicity Jones looks very young. and to play a mother that's reaching the end of her life. Granted, reaching the end of her life too young, but still. But she's able to really have that motherly way about her. Like the way I praise Chastain's performance in The Tree of Life. Just that kind of natural motherly thing that some actresses have. Felicity Jones definitely has here. And like I said, even when she's just coming apart, like quite literally, there's still like a loveliness to her that's really strong. That really kind of gives the whole tragedy of it its impact. Apart from, like I said, the all too real acting from the actor himself because of his real life bleeding into it. But yeah, like I said, the symbolism is a little too obvious at times. Like the whole, we know he's afraid of her situation and her cancer and all that, because when she's having like an episode and Sigourney Weaver's helping her, and he doesn't want to go in the room because he's too afraid. And then the first thing he says when he meets the monster is, "I'm not afraid of you," and stuff like that. The whole symbolism is clearly like right there in your face. So yeah, and it's kind of just all that, but still, the animated sequences are impressive if they're a little much. And this kind of the way they play off this like constant transitions is cool. Like just one example would be like when the monster's arm like turns into a bridge and all that. So yeah, there are definitely some problems in here, and it does, soften the impact of what could have been a fantastically tearful last third. But even so, even though it's a bit much in the visual department, it's too impressive to just outright dismiss too. So you really do have to give it credit, even if they maybe overdid it a little bit. So, yes.
All right. So ends another edition of AJ's Movie Reviews. Tomorrow we'll go back to Versus. It's going to be a very comedic Versus. Should be a fun one. Especially on Golden Globe Sunday. If you want to see what the predictions are for AJ, Ashley, and myself, the video is available right here on the network as well. And if you haven't caught up yet, our Oscar videos are currently available for consumption. So there you go. But before we go home, we have to go with some star amounts. So Manchester by the Sea,
3.
Hidden Figures,
2.5.
and A Monster Calls,
2.5.
Yeah, I figured that.
I figured you would say that.
Yeah. Probably. So, next week, yes, we've waited forever for it. It's finally going to happen. La La Land.
You've waited forever. I'm indifferent.
We, as in a network, have waited for it. Everybody has been waiting for this movie.
For some reason, I'm not... Like, even before all of its hype and its awards stuff, I was just like... And as much as I love Whiplash, it's just like... I could take or leave La La Land, I guess.
I've been set since I saw the first trailer, so yeah. And that's coming next week with Lion and Patriots Day and possibly some more 2016 movies. Fingers crossed on that one. May have to wait for the 2017 ones, but I guess we'll see when we get to it. So, continue to check out the other videos here on the network. We have AJ's Movie Reviews. AJ reviewed the entire Underworld saga yesterday, so check that out if you're so inclined. And a lot of great stuff coming wrestling related next couple of weeks. So that being said, follow along on Twitter at Podcast Network, on Zazzle for merch at Podcast Network, on Patreon at Podcast Network, and on our Facebook fan page at Podcast Network. So in the meantime, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?
That's it.